Welcome to Crappy to Happy podcast, a special series on our Sacred Stories podcast dedicated to sharing the incredible stories of grit, grace, and love in our new book, Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy. I'm your host, Rev Ariel Patricia, and together we will answer the question, do bad things happen to good people, or could the difficulties we face be gifts in disguise? Today we are speaking with Frank Zaccari, whose story in Crappy to Happy is titled 5 Years to Live. Frank Zaccari has written and published 5 books based on life-altering events. Frank teaches a program for entrepreneurs at Arizona State University. He is a mentor with the Veterans Treatment Court, a mentor and judge with the University of California Entrepreneurship Academy, the host of a weekly radio show, Life Altering Events, and is an accomplished speaker. So welcome, Frank Zaccari, to Crappy to Happy.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure, Ariel.
Yeah, it's really happy, to use that word again, to have you here as a guest. And your story, 5 Years to Live, is a really touching story, and it's one that touched my heart in your selfless devotion, to your brother. So tell our audience generally what your story is about.
Well, in a thumbnail overview, it's about letting circumstances control your life. My brother was 23 or 24 when he was hurt. He just got engaged on Friday. He was driving to his final assignment with the company he was working for, and he had a car accident where the car flipped multiple times, and he should have died, but he was very badly injured. He spent over a year at Thomas Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia, and then McGee Rehabilitation Hospital, also in Philadelphia. And basically, he had to learn how to do everything all over again. Now, he had no damage to his brain, but he no control of his hands and body and arms. So he had to learn how to eat, he had to learn how to brush his teeth, he had to learn everything all over. And it was a massive impact to the entire family. He's the youngest of 5, always been very close, big Italian family, and it changed everything. Everyone in the family changed something. I was living in California. I moved to South Carolina so I could be an hour away and a flight to Philadelphia. My mother and father stayed at the dormitory at Thomas Jefferson Hospital. My mother stayed for quite a while. My dad had to go back to work after about a month. And then we have a very large family, about 400 cousins in the Northeast, because we all grew up in New York. And there was this constant flow of people coming in to provide support and assistance for Steve. Now, when we were told after the surgery, and the reason for the title of the book, the doctor came out and said to the family that surgery went as well as could be expected, and started going into it. And I'm more the blunt person in the family. I'm the one who sort of hits people between the eyes with a 2x4. And I said to the doctor, I understand that people with this kind of injury usually die within 5 years. Yes or no? And then doctors, as doctors do, said, well, every case. And I said, we're not holding your feet to the fire. I just want an answer, yes or no, on average. And she said, yes, that is the case. So the family is obviously even more devastated. My mother is completely come unglued because this is her youngest child. And then the doctor went on and said, things are never going to be the same for him. He's going to be confined to a wheelchair forever. He's going to need help getting in and out of bed. He's going to need help with virtually everything. And this is a life-changing event. And what you may want to do is consider putting him in some kind of care facility. And at that point, Ariel, my mother went from sobbing hysterically to intense rage. And she stood up and she said, he will never, ever go into a home. We will learn whatever it is we have to do, and we will take care of him. That was the mantra at that point in time. And that's what we did. I spent 10 months in the hospital, almost a year in the hospital. Then he came home to Western New York, to Buffalo, where we all grew up, and everybody rotated in to provide help and assistance while we were going through that critical phase. Once he got past that, he went on and got a master's degree. He started working as an advocate at one of the State University New York systems. And then he had another little accident where his modified van got stuck in a snowbank in Buffalo. And we said, can't stay there anymore, Steve. You can no longer live in Buffalo in a power chair with a converted van. So then he moved to Phoenix. And in Phoenix is where my sister, who also ran rehabilitation hospitals, had moved to. So they lived next door to each other. And then this constant flow of people instead of going to Buffalo to help and support, all went to Phoenix to help and support. So it was a very moving story. It was something where you realized, or I realized, and my brothers and sisters all realized, that no matter what happens to you, nothing is going to be as bad as what happened to Steve. And you can get through this, and you're going to get over whatever it is that you're facing. And that has helped me through many, many things. Got divorced and selling businesses and ups and downs and what have you. And I simply look at my brother, and I'm inspired every day of what he has to go through, and that he has, without Ariel, he is the single most positive person I've ever met in my life. And everybody he's ever met, he attracts, and they're drawn to him. He's like the mayor. Anytime we go anywhere with him, you have to plan on 20, 30 minutes before you leave, because everybody in the place wants to go over and talk to Steve. That's just what he is.
Well, we say that the stories in Crappy to Happy are stories of grit, grace, and love. And I would say that your story, 5 Years to Live, about your brother, Steve, encompasses all of those, without a doubt.
It absolutely does. And at the time of when we first heard the accident, he just got engaged on Friday. The accident happened on Sunday. There was this, oh my God, this can't be happening. Okay, life, as you say in the book, life can't get any more crappy than this. And this overwhelming spirit that he had, that he inflicted upon the entire family, was such that, we're going to overcome this. This is not going to be the end. This is not going to define us. And we were at his house in Phoenix, and he had a number of people that had been handicapped, and we had the then former governor of Arizona, who was a friend of the family, was also there. And they had a conversation. One of the questions they asked was, Steve, if you had to go back X number of years, pre-accident, would you do it? Or would you stay where you're at now? And his answer, Ariel, was, I would stay where I am now, because it's made me a more compassionate person. It's made me a better person. It's made my life and my outlook on life significantly better than it would have been if I had been climbing and clawing up the corporate ladder for all this period of time. And when you hear that, and you go, oh my God, he would rather be in the wheelchair and go through all the pain and suffering that he went through. But he comes out at the end, it was a crappy situation, but it ended up very happy, because he has impacted so many people's lives. It's unbelievable, the number of every time we go somewhere, the people who come up to me and say, man, your brother is just the most inspirational individual we've ever seen. They even have him teaching, Ariel, at Arizona State Medical, at the hospital. And he goes in and he works with doctors on rehabilitation for spinal cord, because they get no training on that. And so he comes in and he tells them, what the impact is and how you should look at it, and the types of treatment that can be done. And one of the other points that we learned from him is, it's not just straight medical. A lot of it is everything that you talk about or is in the book, Crappy to Happy. It's meditation. It's about holistic. It's about diet. It's about prayer. It's about an overall difference in life, and being grateful for not for what happened, but from what he learned from what happened, and what our entire family learned from what happened.
So you've kind of given away the end in the sense that Steve is still alive. So he didn't pass after 5 years, or within a 5-year period. Share with our audience how many years it's been since Steve's accident.
35. It was 35 years on August 11th.
Yeah, so I just take a moment and kind of breathe that in, because that really is a testament, I believe, to again, the grit, the grace, and the love that not only Steve found, but that the rest of the family rallied around him. And it is truly a crappy to happy. So my question, and I think you've answered this as well, but what we're saying is that, bad things happen. Do bad things happen to good people, or could the difficulties we face be gifts in disguise? And what the gift within the pain is. And I believe it sounds like there was many gifts within this deep pain that your family experienced, but what Steve brought up as far as him becoming a more compassionate person, and you saying what a positive impact he's been on so many people, sounds like two incredible gifts to me.
It was. There were so many gifts that came out of this. The whole family, your whole mindset changed. What's important pre-accident didn't matter anymore. It didn't matter if you were a corporate CEO. It didn't matter anymore. It didn't matter if you had hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank. That didn't matter anymore. What mattered is you have family, you have love, you have a commitment to each other, and that's what's important. And when you have a large family, like I do, and people start to move away because life is life, yet this bond just is so tight and so together. And a lot of it had to do because of the accident. And it's realizing how fragile life is and how quickly it can be taken away, and that all the appreciation that we have to have for each day, just getting up, waking up in the morning and being able to say, man, I made it through the night. That's something to be grateful for. And that's a lot of what we learned going through this with my brother.
Frank, you have a radio show called Life Altering Events. Was the experience with your brother, maybe the kernel of a seed for that show? Has that inspired your work as well?
It very much did. It very much did. We had Steve on as a guest, along with my sister, who runs rehabilitation hospitals. And in fact, they live next door to each other in Phoenix. And we've had 56 episodes. We had a lot of listeners, but that one by far, has had the most listeners. And every month it continues to get more and more. It's just one of those stories that it inspires people at any time, regardless. And we even replayed it one time, and it's still got a massive number of listeners. So yes, that episode changed everything for me. It made me more appreciative of life, made me realize that I'm going to get through whatever happens. And he's the shining example. I even went through a very difficult divorce, but I knew it was going to be okay. And there was no bitterness and there was no hostility because, I'm still here. My daughters are still here. I have custody of them, and we're going to make it. We're going to get through this, and things are going to be better.
It's such a great message to leave with our audience. Frank, share with the audience your website and a little bit about how they can find your show and listen to Life Altering Events as well.
Sure. The website's easy. It's my name, frankzaccari.com. And it's obviously www.frankzaccari.com. The show is Life Altering Events, and it is on the voiceamerica.com network. So it's a real radio show. It's not a podcast with me in my basement. And there's a whole studio, and that can be found at Life Altering Events, or you can go through voiceamerica.com empowerment channel. And either way, the show is every Tuesday at 8 o'clock California time, and then it is rebroadcast, and it's put out on demand, so you can stream it and listen to it anytime you want.
So Frank Zaccari, ZACCARI.com, and it's Life Altering Events on voiceamerica.com. And just for clarification, a podcast similar to Crappy to Happy. There's nothing wrong with our podcast either. Just a different vehicle, but Frank's is a radio show on an internet radio station, Voice America, which is a wonderful, wonderful consciousness raising radio station. So check it out. frankzaccari.com and Life Altering Events on Voice America. Frank, thank you so much for being our guest and for sharing your story in our new book, Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure, Ariel.
Crappy to Happy is available through Amazon, booksellers worldwide, or direct through Sacred Stories Publishing. I encourage everyone to get a copy. Frank's incredible story, 5 Years to Live, is one of 30 stories, profound stories that bring people truly from crappy circumstances to either happy or a happier perspective on life. And so I encourage everyone to get a copy. I want to thank you all for listening to our Crappy to Happy podcast. I am your host, Rev Ariel Patricia. And until next time, as always, I encourage you to write your sacred story well.